Jumping right into the tactics, Germany came out in a 3-2-5 formation, a very hyper-modern formation that we see in many of the top-level clubs. Sule was playing a right-back position, but he would tuck in to become the third center-back in this back three, and that would leave a double pivot of Kimmich and Gundogan in the middle. Germany dominated possession early on and all throughout the first half of this game. Sometimes we would even see Sule and Schlotterbeck, the two outside center-backs, push up into the midfield to create kind of a midfield four with that front five already there. Because Germany were so dominating on the ball, they were able to do this. Japan, on the other hand, came out in a very narrow and very solid 4-4-2 shape in order to compress the middle of the field as much as possible. They didn't want to allow Germany to play through the middle of the field at all, and their entire game plan was to play off of Germany's mistakes, so they wanted to force the ball to either the middle or the outside, where they could then cause mistakes and catch Germany on the counterattack with only their three defenders. Something else you can notice in this formation is that Japan's right mid and left mid tend to play much farther back towards their defensive line, as the five-man attack for Germany had Rom and Gnabry on the outside, and it needed the support of those left and right center mids to drop back for Japan to have a defensive advantage. While Germany did look to play through the middle because they had a lot of their key players such as Havertz, Musiala, and Muller playing in the middle, it was their play in the middle that really opened up the outsides for Rom and Gnabry to take the free space. It was in these spaces on the outside that Germany found the most success during the first half. We can see from the aftermatch stats that Germany's progression and final third phases were much wider than we typically see, as they wanted to take advantage of those wide spaces that were left open by the very narrow Japan shape. And if we look at the Japan mid-block and low-block, we can see that they're extremely compact and extremely narrow. And this was working pretty well for Japan in the first half, as Germany didn't create many chances through the middle. So as I mentioned, Rom and Gnabry were key players because they found so much free space out wide due to Japan's narrow shape and wanting to close down the space in the middle. This game was all about missed chances for Germany, and something that they did throughout the game was try and overload one side of the field so that they could leave Rom or Gnabry free with tons of open space on the other side, send a quick switch over to Rom and Gnabry, and they would have a lot of space to go at and attack the goal. Now, there were a lot of times that Germany also missed this idea, and we're going to go through kind of a compilation of 3 or 4 instances where instead of playing the free man Rom out wide, Germany elected to, pass it back or take a shot on goal. But Rom was always free in that space out wide, and he was causing Japan problems, and they didn't really account for him in the first half. It was because of Rom making this run into the free space and keeping the width that Germany got their first goal of the game, where he made a diagonal run in behind into the free space, and the goalkeeper came out and caused a penalty for Germany. Now, we did talk much about Japan on the ball because they didn't have a lot of possession during the first half, and that was simply due to Germany's press being very effective against their formation. Germany were able to press 1-for-1 with Japan's man, and this forced them to go long, and Japan had little to no possession during the first half. Germany came into the half 1-0, and they looked pretty dominant. However, Japan came out in the second half with a completely new game plan, and it really flipped the switch on Germany in the second half. We saw Japan put in an extra defender and move to a 3-back system. This added 2 pivots in the middle for them, and it also created a lot of space in their backline for them to move the ball around in the build-up. Germany came out in the same shape as the first half, and with Japan moving to the 3-back with 2 pivots, it made their press relatively ineffective for a lot of the second half. You can see the overall shape of Japan look more like a 3-4-3, with 3 of their forwards staying higher up, 4 men in the midfield, and then that back 3. A major part of this change in system for Japan was the emphasis on now pressuring Germany. Japan were very much playing a mid and low blocks during the first half, giving up possession to Germany. However, instead of waiting for Germany to make the mistakes, Japan wanted to force the mistakes. In Japan's new shape, they were able to press Germany 1-for-1. And with Germany keeping the same shape as in the first half, they typically only had 3 or 4 defenders back, and if Japan were able to cause a turnover higher up the field, they would have more men forward to use to their advantage. We saw Neuer going long multiple times throughout the game, and Germany could do very little against this Japanese press. Another problem with Germany during the second half was the spacing between the lines. During the first half, they were able to comfortably move the ball up the field and begin the possession phase in their opponent's half. However, Germany struggled to build up when they were pinned in their own half, and a lot of the time the spacing between the forward 5 and the midfield 2 and the back 3 was way off, and Japan were able to take advantage of these free spaces between the lines and gather any misplaced passes, and also keep Germany pinned at the back, forcing them to go long if they needed to. Then, once Japan were able to force a turnover, their front 3 and midfield 4 could turn into a front 5 kind of similar to Germany. Their wingbacks would push up higher up the field, while their wingers would invert a little bit, coming towards the inside and creating a front five. And during the early stages of the second half, Germany had no idea how to combat this. Their midfield two of Kimmich and Gundogan was kind of clueless when the back four had 5 men on them, so they had a lot of early on troubles dealing with this. And it was this way that Japan were able to get their first goal of the game. You see the back five in front of the German back four, and the two pivots of Kimmich and Gundogan don't really know where they need to be and who they need to be marking in the space. That lets Japan get in behind and tap in an easy rebound. Japan were able to use these high press tactics to get 2 quick goals back over Germany. This all but sealed the game for Japan, and although they did get lucky with Germany creating a lot of chances, Germany were not able to finish any of their chances this game, and it's a well-deserved victory for the Japanese, who came out with a clear-cut game plan in the second half that ultimately worked to take down Germany.